Hey there, welcome to episode 86 of the Cafe Genius Impresario's audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo. We are recording this at just about 12:30 in the afternoon on Friday, October 18th, 2024. At long last, summer appears to have at least come to a brief respite. We'll find out in about a week, but the weather in Las Vegas is actually chilly. Well, allegedly in the low 60s Fahrenheit. I guess if you compare that to the 90s a couple days ago, that's we're getting ready for snow. So welcome to another episode of the Impresario's audio program, where we talk about our entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem here in the greater Vegas area, and maybe where you are. Some things are similar, some things probably vastly different. Today, as luck would have it, we are talking about you, because it is all you. The Cafe Genius audio program, as I mentioned, is aimed at talking about, investigating, examining, pondering the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem here in Greater Vegas or elsewhere. Ideally, we will return to a guest-laden format. That is, we'll have entrepreneurs and innovators and entrepreneurial innovators, people adjacent to those pursuits as guests on this program to talk about being an impresario, which is some of those things, all of those things, some other things, people who do stuff. So we'll see how that goes. But today we are talking about you. So we'll see if you have an argument against, come on down. Hopefully where you are, hopefully wherever you, sometimes I forget that I'm actually speaking. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you are able to find the episode description, which contains the show notes. The show notes are the summary. I'm in there too, but hapless host. The summary of today's episode, which I will read to you, and then the links. There are two of the usual shameless self-promotion links for your host and his various endeavors, and then a link on Wikipedia, of course, to Vilfredo Pareto. So let's get started. I'll read the summary. We'll do the links real quick. We'll do the show. We'll do this episode, and then you can get back to your entrepreneurial adventures. Another Friday, that's today, rarely the end of the week for someone like us pursuing an entrepreneurial endeavor. Have you ever asked yourself if this is all worth it, if working for someone else might make more sense? It won't. If you haven't, you're doing it wrong. There's always that room for doubt. What am I thinking? What was I thinking? There must, though, be a reason you began this journey. Today's links include the two, as I mentioned, buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo, Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com/DanHugo. You need not purchase anything, spend any money, or even visit these sites if you don't want to. The buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo does provide a free-form profile page that I have used to include my various links to my audio programs. I do produce 4 audio programs each week about different topics. This is one of them. There might be another one joining the fray. We still have Hugo Floss to ponder. We'll see where that one ends up. There are so many days in the week. Why am I not creating audio programming for each one? Links to some various projects, and that these are things that will be growing. There'll be some additions, and so the free form, I don't have to deal with the link tree silliness. If you don't know what a link tree is, don't worry. And then Ko-fi.com, I should be using more for announcing things like what I just said, so that will come into effect. I don't really have much engagement there. I think I have 1 follower, but we'll see. I think being more active will be a worthy experiment. Entrepreneurial thinking right there. So yeah, check those out. I use them because open source people that are building and supporting and maintaining open source projects tend to use these. They're recognizable support brands. And again, you don't need to spend any money. I don't either. So that's nice. Vilfredo Pareto, if you're familiar with the so-called 80-20 rule or the Pareto principle, you will have already familiarized yourself with Vilfredo's work. You can check out the Wikipedia page for more information, just to familiarize yourself with what that really means. You probably have heard it, but never really knew, or maybe you did know, and you don't have to click on the link. That's fine. Wikipedia, Vilfredo Pareto. Have a look. Now on with the show. Entrepreneurs are people too. Don't forget that. I think there's a notion floating around, especially here in Vegas, unfortunately, that entrepreneurs are people building tech startups. If you're not doing a tech startup, go away, kid. Get away, kid. You bother me. Raking in millions in funding with goals to be $1 trillion company. Hoot. I think there's also a reality that goes unsung, perhaps, that entrepreneurs are people with an idea and no money. I did not come up with that, and it's actually a variation on a quote by a reasonably well-known economist. I didn't go look that up, but you should. Entrepreneurs are people with an idea and no money that may not be going for millions and trillions, but merely seeing their idea come to fruition. I think any engineer understands that. Most creative people do as well. If it is sustainable, great. We call it a lifestyle business, perhaps. Yeah, that doesn't mean you're not an entrepreneur. So I'm always kind of annoyed by that. Oh, you're not doing the next Google, the next Uber, like with disappointment. That's ridiculous. The people in the first group, that is the people trying to build the next Google, the $1 trillion company, the unicorn. And I cannot remember, but I think it's $1 billion valuation in 7 years. Makes you a unicorn. So get started now, kids. The people in the first group are often more, they often get more attention. They're given more attention, I should say. They get more press, local media, other people kibitzing and gossiping, and are generally considered more interesting because I guess it's exciting when you climb very high, you have greater distance to fall, maybe. But as luck would have it, man, I wish I would edit my notes beforehand. As luck would have it, not with. I was probably going to say with any luck. As luck would have it, there are fewer of them, the first group, than those in the second group. In other words, wherever you are, there may be 1,000 potential unicorns, and most of them will fail. Statistically, and somewhat ironically, 80% of them will fail. It's almost like a restaurant. Restaurants, they often say like 80 to 90% will fail in the first 5 years or whatever it is. Startups, especially in tech, are not really much more reliable from an investor and sustainability and future point of view. That's something to keep in mind. There are fewer of them, so if there is 1,000 unicorns in the making and like 200 of them survive, and then of those maybe 2 or 1 have the potential, those are some unhappy odds. Those are Vegas odds. The second group might have 10,000 small businesses that start a solo company, which we'll talk about briefly. It might be just you. You don't have to worry about so many things like raising millions of dollars, but maybe you just have a nice, sustainable business and you stay in business long after even the 200 that went some distance eventually get, I guess being acquired is one thing, but that's no fun. But yeah, you can just have your business. In fact, you could have a few businesses. So yeah, the 80%. Now maybe Vilfredo Pareto had something to do with this, but right around 80% of businesses in the U.S., based on data from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and I've talked about this in a previous episode, because the greater Vegas area is right in line with this. I think it was 82% or something in that area. So 80% of businesses in the United States have no employees. You thought I was going to say they fail, right? Maybe that's why, I don't know. Now, these may be solopreneur endeavors. So it might be just a one-person shop. They might be all outsourced, where work is done by consultants, contractors, outside vendors. So you may be an American company in the United States, and you may have all of your work being done offshore manufacturing, packaging, shipping. So you don't really need any employees here. You don't have to say you have any employees for you're outsourcing to a service, right? So you're just paying an invoice and then you're selling a product. That's one thing. There could be a variety of possibilities. So you don't even need to have a business location. You don't need to have offices and so on. At the end of the day, it's a one-person company and you can keep it small. Are you going to be $1 trillion one-person company? Probably not, but you can still do okay. You still do pretty well, actually. It may well be that 80% of the economic outcomes that make the news are brought about by the remaining 20%. That is the so-called 80-20 rule. Then, and of course, the 20% are employing people, which everybody likes. Job creation, job growth. Everybody loves that, even if it's construction projects, because nobody thinks about temporary jobs as temporary, except the people that have them. The numbers game is real. All of this being said, ideas should begin somewhere, and your idea may not be the next unicorn, as they say, but your idea may be perfectly fine and worth pursuing. But you are the one who makes that decision. It's hard to, come on, start a company. I mean, I'm sure that happens. Have you ever heard someone say this? Someone should fix that. In my own travels, I have observed more times than I can count, really, individuals and groups, usually it's individuals in groups, unhappy about something. Potholes, poor press coverage of startups. That's a real one. Actually, potholes is too. And suggesting en masse that someone should do something about this. Someone should fix this. Someone. But who? Sometimes the peanut gallery will supply a champion. Sometimes somebody will stand up and say, I'll do it. Or, hey, I'm going to do it. Does anybody want to help? So you kind of get this group think and a little bit of momentum. Yeah, wait until the morning after, see how that pans out. But, could happen. I don't want to be too cynical, but I don't want to not be cynical enough either. So if someone's looking at the situation thinking, hey, I have an idea, and then maybe one or two other people are like, oh, what, do you need something? How can I help? How can we be a part of it? But yeah, wait until. Give it a couple days. We'll see what happens. There may be someone in the gallery who is unhappy about this thing, who themselves might be pursuing an entrepreneurial endeavor. In other words, I'm already an entrepreneur. I already have a startup business of some sort, but this thing bothers me, whatever it is. It's preventing me from doing business. It troubles me when I go home and I can't get to my driveway because of the potholes, whatever it is. Why are they not stepping up? Well, they have no time. That's usually the number one answer on Family Feud for this. So no knowledge. That's probably number 3. I don't know how to solve this. I just know it needs to be solved. This I find suspect because time spent complaining. So if you're here complaining, you should stop the complaining and spend time connecting people. Like, I don't have time to do it myself, but I know a guy from Ocean's 11. I know a guy. You might know someone who could come up with a plan or has a potential solution, or, oh, I met this guy or I met this woman, I met this man, I met this group, I met whomever working on a new automated pothole solution. Maybe we should see if they want to get involved with this, or maybe it would benefit them in some way. So you might connect people. You might just enable discussions. You don't, like, hey, come to my restaurant. We can have meetings there as often as you like. You don't have to pay for a meeting space. You can stay there after hours. I have an LCD, a large TV. If you want to use it for a presentation, you can do all kinds of things that don't involve, like, hey, I don't have the time to be involved directly, but what can I do to help? Because I'm entrepreneurial too, and I understand that sometimes you need a little something, a little extra to enable, to connect, just a little extension cord to connect the plug to the wall. Time spent complaining could be doing these things, pointing towards funding sources. Hey, if you guys can reach a certain point, I know how to get some funding for this, or I think I know somebody. I might be able to put some funding into this, right? So if there are people around you who are entrepreneurial themselves but don't have the time, it doesn't mean they should turn their back and just continue complaining. I see that all too often. Still, though, it will come down to a very small number of people who will take that all-important step to begin the journey to tackle the thing, whatever it might be. This might be you. And once again, I'm editing my notes. Okay. It might well be you, in fact. So you should never talk yourself out of an idea. Not everything is a problem. So you may hear people complaining about things and think, I can solve that. Maybe it's just a gap. Maybe it's not an actual problem. An empty lot. Maybe a building was torn down, maybe it was fire damaged, and now there's an empty space, like a missing tooth. And, from some perspectives, that's a problem. It makes the street look bad, but you can't just build something and hope for the best. Spec building, it might go somewhere, might not. Who knows? It depends on a lot of things. So it's an empty lot. It could make a great spot for a Turkish coffee shop. Maybe you think to yourself, Like, you know what we don't have here? And strangely enough, it's not a snapping of the fingers to get a Turkish coffee in Vegas. You can get a lot of different kinds of coffees, but they're mostly espresso. Turkish restaurant, maybe Mediterranean restaurants. But I want to walk into a coffee shop and get a Turkish coffee or an Ethiopian. Cafe free and hungry, that's a different topic for a different day. So yeah, a Turkish coffee shop, a way, maybe it's not even a location. Maybe it's a way to share monthly birthdays in a neighborhood without sharing too much personal information. So you're not, divulging your inner secrets, but you can say, hey, 25 people within a mile of you have a birthday today. That might be high, it might be low, who knows? Nobody's built this tool yet, that is, as far as I know. So, but LinkedIn announces birthdays, which is bizarre to me, but that's a different thing. How about a way to connect people in cars with available parking spaces? Like instead of driving around, risking collisions from being distracted, making turns, turning your neck and your head to, what about down there? What about, and then who knows? Who knows what could go awry? So yeah, why don't you work on that? It's not a huge problem that people are freaking out about, like potholes, but it's something I didn't know we needed this, but we did. And the list goes on. So not everything has to be like a pressing problem. It just might be you can call it a pain point, but it's not, this must be fixed. I'm going to go to a meeting and complain about it. It's just one of those things, like finding a parking space. Entrepreneurs can open a coffee shop and a restaurant and a bookshop and a virtual services business. You can do all sorts of things. Maybe you have a particular interest in, and this is also a very, the beginning of a long list. It might be an interest area that doesn't solve a problem per se. Like I've always wanted to open a Turkish coffee shop, or I've always wanted to open a chemistry lab style coffee shop, which is, I think somebody should do that. Real distillation columns. I mean, you kind of get that effect with a siphon coffee shop, which I think Makers and Finders has a big siphon. They make coffee in downtown Vegas. So yeah, you can do some cool things, be a little bit different, just try out an idea, see what happens. And yeah, I'm not saying throw money around, but throw ideas around. How about that? So you're not solving a problem. No one is saying there's no siphon coffee out. There's no coffee shop with a chemistry lab theme with beakers and flasks and Bunsen burners. And that would be cool though, wouldn't it? You could address a pain point, like I said, so it might be something that's kind of annoying, but not worth. I wouldn't have thought to start a whole company to make this better, but it is. Or bring some culture to an area, food trucks, for example, serving up your traditional family victuals from time immemorial, or generally elevate a geographical or virtual place for the sake of the people. Like, you're not doing it to get rich. You're not doing it to soak people for their money. You're just like, hey, it would be kind of fun. I think it would be cool. And maybe it will lead to other things. And there is that big open space that could be used for exactly that. Or maybe animals could be involved, right? Maybe you're going to create a new pet visiting or play place, a dog park of some sort that brings people and pets together. The list goes on. Although I got to say there was one of those downtown and it didn't fare well. So consider location, and of course location when you're doing those sorts of things. But hey, people love their pets with good reason. I'm a fan of pets as friends. I don't know. Some people accuse others of, no, let's not even go there. Entrepreneurial pursuits may not be ongoing. That's something that is often kind of ignored, I guess, or left out of consideration. They might be temporary. Or perhaps cyclic, like maybe you do a seasonal business, talk to an entrepreneurial tax preparation professional. They'll tell you all about that. Or something aligned with other events or conditions. Maybe you do something aimed at students returning to or ending school at the end of a semester or a school year. Maybe it's holiday or seasonal, both. That's kind of similar. Or maybe it's aligned with maybe you make a pie out of the seasonal fruit. Maybe you make a particular thing out of a seasonal vegetable. Whatever it is. There are times and places for different types of businesses. And you could do more than one thing, perhaps. This works well if you are thinking about having a few irons in the fire, as they say, and you are less likely to get bored. You're not going to be, 2 years in on making widgets. Maybe you don't like Turkish coffee so much, but you might think, but I only do this. Well, Turkish coffee might be good all year round, but I also have my pumpkin carving business and my like honey baked hams. Have you ever been to a honey baked ham that's open? They are open for Thanksgiving, and they have a line around the building. And then I never see anybody going to a honey baked ham. I don't even know if they're still in business. You know what? Let's check. The power of the internet is at our disposal. Let's take a quick look. Honey baked ham. Every city has one. Honey baked ham. There are 2 locations. They are temporarily closed. I'll give you, okay, so today is October 18th. I'm going to predict that they will be temporarily open a month from now. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, one is very near me. I knew I saw one somewhere. So yeah, it's very, very, very near me. I could walk there right now. It's near a Chick-fil-A. That might be a problem. So your business could be something similar. You might do something for a short period of time, do something else, and so on. That mitigates your risk, prevents you becoming bored. It insulates you, in addition to mitigating risk, it just insulates you from being in a rut or depending too much on the interest that might wane. It might be cyclic itself. Like some years, honey baked hams might be in. Other years, it might be, for some reason, turkey. Save that for the coffee. 2 different things, I know, turkey versus the bird. But either way, if you have a few different things in motion at different times, you may not get into trouble if one slows down or stops, or again, if you get bored, or, things that maybe the supply of honey baked hams, wherever the farm is where they grow honey baked hams, maybe that supply chain element has a problem. You never know. So I have a few things moving. It's one way to go. That's very entrepreneurial thinking right there. Now, not everything is for profit either, which sounds ridiculous, of course. I have mentioned this many times. The Innovate for Vegas Foundation, of which I'm the managing director, is a 501c3 public charity. It's a Nevada nonprofit corporation through which we are enabling and encouraging, sounds like our purpose statement, right? Enabling and encouraging ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. So we're talking about community elevation, civic volunteerism, and so on. The foundation is very explicitly nonprofit. We don't pay anyone. I don't get paid. Nobody gets paid. We're civic volunteers. You should want to do it for free. Now, it doesn't mean we have no plans to turn volunteer effort into compensation or value for the contributors of their time, effort, and expertise. But the foundation itself, very explicitly nonprofit. But the ideas that come from civic volunteerism can quite easily become spin-off ventures, other ideas that I do have already. So I think I've talked about these already, maybe here, but certainly on our Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program, which is a program I've been publishing on Tuesdays, which you will know when you visit buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo. Anyway, now sometimes a nonprofit or perhaps a public benefit corporation, or sometimes called a benefit corporation, I believe in the U.S. corporate lingo, but if you're a public benefit corporation or a public corporation, sometimes I've heard them referred to as public good corporations, but I believe technically public benefit corporation. It's a different thing. Here you make profit, but you don't necessarily take actions to benefit your shareholders or the corporation itself. Your fiduciary responsibilities are different for a public benefit. So there you go. So yeah, you're not beholden to your investors so much as you are in a traditional, but I'm not an attorney, not a tax professional. I'll just put that out there again, as I have in many previous episodes. You can enable action on your idea in different ways, though. If you don't think automatically, I have to raise money, I have to go to VC firm. No. There's a lot of different ways to do different things. An important thing to remember, nonprofit does not necessarily mean no money. But you should, now with Innovate for Vegas Foundation, it's 100% volunteer, but it doesn't mean that there can't be revenue in the form of donations that can go to pay for bills and services. And maybe we need to hire someone to do something like maybe a tax preparer or an attorney or for business, for writing contracts. Maybe there will be a time when we have a partnership with municipal partners or NGO partners, or who knows. So having some sort of professional oversight that, to make sure nobody, especially our nonprofit, gets injured in a poorly planned and thought out deal. So it's not completely money light. So but certainly consult your business attorney, a tax professional, and then maybe another business attorney, and get the structure of your idea right if you're thinking about going down any of these paths. But basically, your idea and maybe a traditional for-profit, just your normal, like an LLC, which I have one of those too, or an S Corp, a C Corp, LLP, which is rare unless maybe you're an attorney. Maybe you're going to pursue a nonprofit, which, by the way, some people get confused by this. Nonprofit is a state designation. IRS determines 501A entities. So typically you will form a nonprofit entity in your state, nonprofit corporation here in Nevada, for example. Then you will file your 1023 or 1023-EZ with the IRS to receive a determination letter that you are eligible to operate as, for example, a 501c3, which is tax exempt, donations tax deductible. I cannot remember how many 501a types there are, but it's more than 3. So 501c4, 501c6, 501c3, etc. So basically your idea for any of those, for-profit, nonprofit, a benefit corporation, or a type of corporate, or some other type of corporate structure. So maybe one of the other 501as, or maybe it would be an LLC, or who knows. Might be this decision point that can clear a path for you more easily. Maybe one option would look better in the near term than another. You can always consider a spinoff, an arm's length entity if you have a nonprofit. If you have a 501c3 and you'd like to have a spinoff that can actually generate revenue and profit and pay salaries and so on, that could be an arm's length entity that you keep your bookkeeping straight, and you keep an eye on making sure that arm is long enough. You can do completely legal business operations that will ultimately help you reach your goal. And this is not legal advice, not tax advice of any kind, but it is something to read about and to look at. So my advice would be, go learn about these things and ask questions about them. I learned a tremendous amount by pursuing what we're doing right now. So if you can begin somewhere, that doesn't mean you are locked into that one mode of operation forever, right? So sometimes getting your idea into a state where it can be tried out, it can be exposed to the world. Maybe you can make a subsidiary of something. Who knows? There's always possibilities. So getting stuck with the one-dimensional thinking, like, I must go to a pitch event and ask for money and have VCs telling me my idea is dumb, and no. There are a ton of possibilities that do not necessarily require you to aim for unicorn status. So you don't have to impress all those people I just mentioned. Just do it. And now if you do these other things I was talking about, you might not be a solopreneur anymore if you're thinking about forming nonprofit entities and IRS determinations for you. You pretty much need a board of directors at least, and so on, but you will learn as you need to. And ask people who do these things. That's a good starting point anyway. Be careful with advice from people who don't know what they're talking about, like you're listening to somebody right now. But yeah, just do it. That's not just do it. That's a trademark, I think. But do it is a directive. It is the title of the final section of this audio program. The proverbial kitchen table has been the starting point for more good ideas than we will ever really understand. Your kitchen might well be the founding location of your entrepreneurial enterprise, even if it remains a solo operation forever or the near term until you move into a bigger kitchen. You would be in the majority. Remember, 80% of the United States small businesses are, I don't remember if it's all businesses or small businesses, SMB, small, medium business. The statistics are tricky like that. But there are an awful lot of people, or there are an awful lot of businesses that employ no one. Now, another question for your business attorney might be how to structure your entity so that the founders, the one founder, if it's just you, or your co-founders are not strictly employees. There's the whole member manager thing. You can delve into that a little bit. So what does it mean to have employees? How are the founder or founders counted in that, and so on? So I'm left to the listener to examine those things. But the important part is you do something. I've talked about this previously about co-founders and generally engaging with others in your mindset. Talked about like meetups and transactional versus actually productive, though not necessarily with people with exactly the same idea. Maybe you run into some competition trouble or stealing of ideas, which is rare, but I'm sure it can happen. So be careful about that. Discussions might lead to places you did not consider. Maybe, I hadn't thought about that. And maybe the other person says, but your version of this is also interesting. Right? You never know. It's important, though, to get it off the couch. Your idea sitting on the couch with you is never going to go anywhere. So you got to get it off the couch and into the light. Do it while the opportunity exists, while the problem is not being solved, when it should be, when the timing is right. Entrepreneurial thinking need not be secretive. You don't need to be in stealth mode. Sometimes, occasionally, but more often than not, you are doing it for your own, because it seems cool. Ooh, we're in stealth mode. We can't talk about it. Okay. Who cares? Keep to yourself then. Go over there in the corner and talk to you and your co-founders. So being in stealth mode does not necessarily mean that you're protecting your idea. Sometimes it just means you're being antisocial. But your mileage may vary, so do what you feel is right. Finally, and I do mean finally, failure is almost always an option, unless you're going to the moon. Your idea might be wonderful, but the timing might be off, might not be right. The implementation may be a miss. The market just wasn't ready, wasn't there to keep your idea alive. A variety of things can go wrong. They cannot, and it might not even be about going wrong so much as not going right enough. It was a great product. Oh, was it in Love Actually, the chef that opens the restaurant and then they're sitting there as he's closing because it was a wonderful restaurant. It's just too bad nobody came in. Nobody ate there. Not sufficient numbers. So it doesn't necessarily mean the idea was bad or that the food was bad. It might just mean foot traffic. There could be a variety of things. And the really important thing is to learn from that. If you can learn, maybe you give it another go somewhere else, some other time, place, tweaking the idea, changing the pricing, changing the marketing messaging, or you could pivot in place. Maybe you're able to kind of pull it out like an airplane nearly striking the ground, but pulling out at the last moment. And if we just change the color, and there are countless stories about that, changing logo, changing color, changing the font used in the label on the brand. I think Halo Creamery has one of those stories. If you like Halo ice cream, low calorie ice cream, it's good actually. Try it. You will never know any of this if you never try. So what are you waiting for? I'll tell you, I'm waiting for you to go check out buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo to not spend any money, but to check out my other audio programs and to keep an eye out for when I add a couple more things. Hopefully this weekend I'll take a moment and put some links up. There are actually technically three, but two websites that have nothing to do with audio programs yet that are they're deployed with not a placeholder. It's not like under construction or coming soon, but it is not pretty, but the content is there. It is identifiable. So that's it's a better start than coming soon, I think. So I'll put some stuff up out there I'll put some stuff on both Ko-fi and buymeacoffee.com about those. And then I believe there will be at least one audio program, or maybe not audio, for at least one of the two things. They're both projects from Innovate for Vegas Foundation. There is always going to be a place for some sort of not being a streamer, not in an exciting way, but some conversation, discussion about how these two things could be used, how they're being used, if they get deployed and accepted, and so on. So there's some potential there. It's kind of fun to engage in conversation in an interactive arrangement. So I would look for that approach as well. Anyway, so I'll leave you with that thought. So now take your earbuds out or stop on the treadmill or whatever you're up to right now. Get back to pursuing your ideas, because ultimately it is much more difficult to regret not trying than trying and failing. Because when you fail, you learn. When you don't try, you'll never know. Take care.